So this is how it all started. This guy's burning up.
What's that?
See it steaming? You're smoking?
Yeah.
So the wheel is clearly overheating, steaming. None of the other hubs were steaming like that. And so I wasn't sure what was going on. The first conclusion that I jumped to was, oh, it must be the bearings. The bearings are not working right and overheating. But after going to a local tire shop and talking with those guys, um, basically the wheels they didn't have any extra play in them, and so it seemed like the bearings were actually really good. So that probably wasn't it. And then we got looking closer, and it seemed like the one brake was still actually dragging a little bit. Not enough to stop the wheel, but enough to basically cause enough friction to create heat that then was actually, causing the whole drum to heat up and thus the hub to heat up as well. So this took me to the series of, again, pointing at the wrong parts of what the actual true issue was. The first thing I thought is, oh, it must be that slack adjuster because it wasn't returning the whole way down. So I thought that must be what it is, and I replaced that slack adjuster. Of course, the problem persisted after that. So then I thought, oh, it must be the air canister, not the slack adjuster. So not only did I replace the slack adjuster, I then also replaced that air canister further behind, thinking that that would help me out. But again, the problem persisted. Here I'm kind of showing it. I'm kicking the tires right now. The tires are off the ground. Um, and yet they won't spin. The brake should be released, but yet it's still holding enough that I can't freely kind of kick and spin the tires. Yeah, but yet if I push just a little bit right there, then it goes back in. And now that it's gone back in, now I can freely kick and spin the tires without any issue. So the only logical next thing to look at would be the brake pads themselves. And we took off the tires and wheels and then the drum to expose the brake pads. And everything in there actually looked good. The springs and everything, they seemed to be functioning correctly. It was just very difficult to turn them on and off, but the actual brake pads themselves looked good. But by removing all that stuff and then removing the brake pads themselves, that's when we were able to identify that it was actually the S camshaft that was itself really difficult to move.
It turns the S cam, but if you look, there's nothing on it, and it is pretty tough to turn. Just added more grease, which it already had grease, but I added more, thinking that might help. I think it got tighter.
So I think after watching some videos online and things like that, at this point it was pretty obvious that there's actually some, bushings in there, and it was the bushings that needed to be replaced. So we took out the S camshaft and removed the existing bushings and then put on some replacement ones. And boy, that was certainly what the issue was, and it's very obvious.
This is the original bushing. It should sit down on that end, but these are kind of the same width here and here. And look at that. Look at that. Won't even go over the end. It's so tight. And here's the new replacement one, and watch this. Look at that. These are, like, I don't know how that shrank or whatever, but man, oh man, this is going to be way better. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
So that was it. We replaced those bushings, put everything back together, and problem solved. So that's the conclusion to this. Of course, there's always a deeper story behind the story. So if you're looking for what the answer was to my issue, that was the answer. It was the bushings on the S-cam. Now, if you want to stay and see, what all went into it, now I'll go deeper into that because I knew that I did this fix in the springtime, but I knew that the other ones were going to have that same problem. Some of them were kind of showing a little bit of, that same problem already happening. But again, they're all the same age. I know it's just going to be a matter of time before they all have the exact same problem. So when I had time this winter, I went ahead and decided to replace the bushings on the other three um, brakes as well. So um, that's what we'll dive into now if you want to see everything that it goes into these kind of things. But before I can fast forward to this winter and kind of all the details that go into changing these bushings,
All
I
right,
need
this
to
is just a
actually
reminder
back
to
up
myself.
before I even changed
Working on
the
the red
first
trailer,
set of bushings.
dualies.
And that was
So how it
when
works
I
is
had
that
to remove the tires off the trailer
these
and everything
button
that
nuts, I guess, or
happened
something
there.
like that they're called. Right here, those screw off to take the outside one off, the outside wheel off, and it's kind of hard to see on any of these probably, but on the nut itself, there's one I've taken off on the other one. Let's see, of course I should pick one I can read. Maybe this one. So if you look right here, it actually tells you that it's a left nut. And so since it's on the left hand side of the trailer, it's a left nut, which means that it actually is lefty tighty, righty loosey. So to get these suckers off, you have to turn them to the right. And then, these go on top of these. And so this is what's holding on to the inside wheel. So you can tell I took those two off, and then the other ones are still on there. And then if you see on the inside of it, you can see the L. It's letting you know that this is a left. You have to go left, because on the other side of the trailer, they're rights. So on this side, I don't think any of them are going to be clean enough that you can see. I'm certain they're not, but they'll say right on them, and then they are righty tighty, lefty loosey as usual. Everything else is the same, but you screw them the opposite way to tighten and to loosen. So, well, on the right hand side, it's a normal way. On the left hand side is the goofy lefty tighty, righty loosey. So, just a little reminder for myself on to how that's going. And these suckers are torqued really, really tough. I guess I'm going to torque them back to like 475 between there and 500. I might even go to 500 because they were way tighter than 600 to take them off, and I'd rather have them a little too tight than not tight enough. But 475, I guess, is supposed to be what the tire guys told me. So, all right, there's your reminder.
Okay, we can go ahead and fast forward to this winter and the start of replacing the other three.
But just taking off the lug nuts, I think, is going to be a trip. So they're the button nuts or whatever. So these two on this side, I think, are going to be the typical righty tighty, lefty loosey. The one on the other side is actually the lefty tighty, righty loosey, which is kind of goofy. But I know I had to use the torque multiplier last time to get those suckers off, and that was even a bear with that thing. So this is going to be, in fact, I think I had to take it to the tire shop to get them off, now that I think about it. So this is going to be interesting.
All right, so just as I kind of predicted there, as I started to take the lug nuts off, the torque multiplier that I currently have is a 1100 foot-pound torque multiplier. So as I tried using that one, when I bought it, I thought that would be more than enough torque than I would ever need. And sure enough, you can see here that I am really struggling to get these off. I end up grabbing my impact gun that I got from a garage sale and trying to use that and kind of going back and forth between the torque multiplier and the impact air gun. But the impact air gun is just a standard one. I mean, it's not really rated for anything higher than what the torque multiplier is. So it really is not a fun situation when you're doing this. So I should point out that I was able to actually get some of these lug nuts off between going back and forth. But the catch is that one, it was very difficult. Two, I felt like I was damaging probably the impact gun that I had, which I don't want to damage that tool. It's a good tool. So between knowing that I was kind of damaging things and that it was just too much, I just knew that I needed to get some bigger equipment. Now I'm including this to kind of show the real life behind these projects. Taking a wheel off just should be the simplest part of this project, and yet here it is turning out to be the most difficult part of this whole entire process. So I'm hoping that this makes other people feel better, because you watch the YouTube videos sometimes and it's like, oh, this is how you do it, and it's just A, B, C, D, no problems, and you don't actually realize sometimes that then when you try to do it, it's like just taking off the lug nuts and doing the very first step of the whole thing just seems impossible, and it just breaks your spirits. And so anyway, I'm hoping that other people can relate and they can see that while I'm struggling with this, while they may be laughing at me or whoever knows, what people are thinking, but at least they can see that it's like, it's not easy for everybody, and problems are going to happen. And while you watch these videos and they seem super simple, when you try doing them yourself, it just never is as simple as you think it's going to be. All right, well, I already had it sped up, but I'm really speeding it up now because, yeah, you don't really want to go through all the pain that I went through going back and forth and trying to get these lug nuts off. But I was able to slowly make progress and actually get this first wheel off. Um, and so it felt good, but oh my God, I was exhausted and frustrated and everything by the end of this.
Anyway, this is how things are looking here. I got the other tire off. So now that's what these button ones look like. So now these are gonna screw off too. But just as a reminder, when you put these back on, the rounded edge part is what goes on. And again, on this side, it's lefty-tighty. Um, there's the other wheel. It goes up against this wheel, just like that. So now I gotta loosen up these guys.
Okay, so I'll jump in here, and yeah, that was the next step, was to take these lug nuts off. Unfortunately, it did not go well at all. I was not able to get them off. Um, Even going back and forth between the two just did not work. These were really, really, really stuck on there. So I ended up watching a YouTube video. The guy was, kind of hitting the lug nuts a little bit with a little sledgehammer, and it wasn't actually to move the lug nut, but it was actually more just to get the lug nut to release from the rim. And so that the rim kind of seizes to the lug nut a little bit, and by able to kind of bounce it, you're really bouncing the rim, not the lug nut. So I thought I'd try it. It did nothing for me. I was also nervous that by hitting right on those that I was really gonna goof up the lug nuts. So I didn't hit real hard, and I didn't really want to cause any damage. So as much as I tried that, um, I didn't try that very much. I basically uh, gave it a couple whacks and then tried kind of seeing if anything loosened at all. And when I saw that it didn't, then I moved on and bought some bigger tools. So as I was waiting for the tools to arrive, one thing that I've always learned is that there's probably always something else you can work on and you can do. So I changed gears. I stopped working on trying to get the wheel off, but I knew that I had to get these slack adjusters off too. And the first time I did this process, it was also a nightmare. Getting those slack adjusters, I mean, they were seized on that S camshaft really, really good. So my hope was to actually be able to get them off without damaging them, since there wasn't really a problem with the slack adjuster. But I kind of knew deep down that I probably would damage them getting them off, and I probably would have to replace them. But that was kind of my first hope, was, is there a way that I could kind of pry them off or break them free? and do it with as little damage as possible.
Alright,
So
I did attempt to
while I'm
pull
waiting
this
for those
slack
other
adjuster
tools to
here.
arrive to take the tire off, I'm switching gears,
This is actually
focusing
just
on getting
holding
the slack adjuster off.
the vice grips here is just kind of holding it so that it's not hitting there where I'm trying. I don't know if you can see that, but just so it's not going to hit there, you know, hit on these as I'm trying to pull it off this way. But yeah, I smacked with the hammer quite a bit, and as you can tell, I've really sprayed it with the penetrating oil, and just hasn't budged yet. I mean, the seal came off the end here, the grease seal, actually on both sides. I think it's come off, but I haven't been able to actually see it. You know, so this part moves back and forth a little bit, but once it moves out to a certain point this way, then it doesn't move any further after that. So I got a new tool here, and it's actually supposed to be for bearings, but I'm going to try putting it on and seeing if I can pull that. Well, I can't tell. It kind of looks like it might fit eventually if I could rotate it the right way, but look at that. The driving bolt, or whatever that is too long. So I think I might have to like cut that driving bolt down in order for it to actually fit on there. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. Well, it's not on there, but you know, it's on there at an angle. Of course, so it's on there at an angle. I don't think I'm hurting the spline, but I had that on there at an angle, and then I've been trying to whack it with the mallet. Again, I haven't seen anything move at all yet. So that really sucks. So, I think I'm going to take this off now and just see if I can put some heat on that thing and see if some heat helps at all, and then hit it again. Well, look at that. It doesn't line up on the top anymore, so I think it's finally moving. I tried using that guy and vibrating it. You can see it put a dent right in down here where it was doing that, but I didn't see it making a difference, so I don't know, maybe it did, but then I went back to whacking it with the hammer, and now it seems to be moving, so I'm going to keep whacking. Look at that. I got it off.
All right, so the new torque multiplier showed up. It looks identical to the previous multiplier that I had, except for the fact that it's obviously larger in size, but it's still a 3-to-1 ratio. But while the other one had 1,100 foot-pounds, the new one has a 2,200 foot-pound on it, so it's should do twice the damage, you would think. So anyway, with the new tool there, I figured I would try to take off the remaining lug nuts on this wheel. So just a couple things to mention here. I mean, obviously you'll see when I get a brand new tool, I'm always a little gentle with it, trying to kind of figure things out, making sure I'm not breaking things. You know, obviously when you're working with 2,200 foot-pounds, you could probably break something pretty easy. But the socket wrench that I have too, one time almost with the cheater bar, almost started to, bend up the tool. And so I don't want to do that either. So oftentimes when I'm grabbing cheater bars and things like that, I'm really trying to take my time and just kind of pay attention and make sure that I'm not damaging things. So it's just, something you want to be aware of.
Well, how about them apples? That was. All right. I guess that worked. I guess that worked. Whew, that was loud though. I think I'm gonna use earplugs on this next one. Whew.
So a couple other things to point out. One, I realized you'll see later in the video when I start working on the other tires that I started putting wood blocks down on the floor because, believe it or not, as all this torque was hitting the floor and things like that, it was actually scratching the concrete, and especially when it would break and it would bounce, it'd chip the concrete a little bit. So it kind of just goes to show you how much torque is actually going into these things. You can also see how it's just lifting and moving the trailer. In real time, you didn't really see that too much, but boy, when you have it on fast forward, you can see that how much torque is really going into this stuff where it's actually, rotating the whole trailer as you're doing these things. But most of the other lug nuts, when they broke, it wasn't quite as big of a snap as that first one was. But boy, oh boy, I got my workout doing this. This was, even though I have the torque multiplier, it still was a workout for me. So now that I had all of the lug nuts loosened, I was able to jack up the trailer, actually spin off the rest of the lug nuts, and and then at that time it's just always a really good time to really clean up the area. So I went ahead and did that too, and then that way there's just less dirt and grime and stuff like that that you can kind of get into the hub while you're working on it and things like that. But I don't know, this is always a good time for me where I really appreciate people that do this for a living every single day, and people that work in tire shops and things like that, where here I'm doing something and it's taking me forever to do, and yet they're probably expected to do it in one afternoon. So to all the people that are actually watching and they do this on a daily basis, kudos to you. You guys, man, it is not easy, and you guys do it day in and day out. For me, it's just a project that I have to do every once in a while, and I can't believe how much it wears me out when I have to do it. So I'm just really impressed by all of you guys. So I finally get to drain the hub of the current oil. This cap here actually has a little drain plug, so I took that out and took advantage of that. A lot of the new ones, it seems like they don't actually have that drain plug. You just pop the cap off and drain it that way. So I really don't know if it, I mean, it seems like it drains just as easy either way, so I don't think it really, the drain plug is all that useful, but anyway, it's nice when you have it.
One thing that's nice working on a trailer is you always got a bench to put all your stuff. It's kind of nice to set everything up there. Anyway, that's draining. So I think there's no point in watching that drain. We'll go do something else while that's draining. So, well, sorry. So yesterday I was complaining how sunny it was outside, but no sun was coming inside. But today's a good example of how great it is to have a shop. So let me just open the door here, show you what the outside looks like. So, not complaining about being in the shop today. It's still cold in here, but at least it's not windy and nasty, and I can kind of pause the project whenever. I'm draining oil right now, and the wind's not affecting that at all. So it is a good day to have a shop.
Okay, so I'm taking the cap of the hub off, and then behind it there's actually just a couple nuts and a couple locks to kind of keep the nuts from spinning off while you're using the trailer. So those come off pretty easily. I kind of would expect that you'd take a lot to take them off, but really it was, I used the wrench a little bit, but for the most part they just spun off by hand. So I guess you can't put those on too tight because of the fact that when they heat and expand and all that, it puts extra wear on the bearings. But obviously mine weren't on too tight because they came right off pretty easy. So I might try to zoom in on this on a later part of the video.
Okay. That's the inside of the hub. You can see the other set of bearings back there. They'll come out after I pull the hub off. Those are the inner ones. That's how everything else is looking here. So this will go in first that way, and then this one that way, and then everything underneath it that way. And then this I will clean off this back side here, and yeah, there's right there, it's hard to see, but there's actually a gasket right there. So I'll scrape off that gasket and then kind of clean this up as well as this up. And then I'll have to buy some more gaskets, but I'll have to take it to them to get the gasket. So anyway, I could take that with me. I was just noticing too down in here, my light's gonna get in the way, but there's a pool of oil in there that will not drain out because the slip is higher, I'm pretty sure, until I pull it off, and then it's probably going to drain out the other side. So note to self, I should probably put down some cardboard there.
So when it comes to taking the drum off, there's a couple things. One, the first thing I'm going to do is check and make sure that the brakes are relieved and that, hopefully they're not going to fight me as I try to pull it off, because obviously if the brakes are on, it's going to be holding that hub. And then the other thing to point out is that, man, these things are heavy. I didn't weigh it, so I don't remember, or I don't know how much it actually weighs, but these things are not light. And when I go to pull it off, I mean, it's just instantly kind of like drops on me a little bit. But anyway, when it comes to pulling it off, a couple other tricks. One, I found that, you might want to hit it with the hammer a little bit just to kind of, break the seal on the back, which is what I'm doing there. But then really the way to get it off, I think, is to pry it. So I got some blocks of wood that I can kind of put in there by the suspension, and then basically pry against the hub. And that seemed to be the easiest as far as working it off. The other thing to think about is as I'm doing this hub, I did it the hard way, which is what you're watching now. And boy, when this comes off, it kind of tips down into my drain bucket there, and I'm kind of nervous I'm going to break the drain bucket because I thought I could kind of cradle it in my lap, and I was not able to. So it really put a lot of stress on that poor little bucket, but it made it. It survived. But there is another way where I take the next hub off. You'll see I came up with a trick, and I think it worked way better. So the next step is to take the brake pads off, and it's been a really long time since I've done that, so you'll watch me kind of get confused and struggle a little bit on this, but I am doing it correctly here. You start on the left, and there's a spring on the inside and the outside, and by the left I mean the opposite side as the S-cam. So basically, it's almost like a clamshell, and if you can get the springs off on just the one side, again, I got to be careful on how I word this, but there's two springs on the side opposed of the S-cam. There's one that's kind of facing outwards towards the wheel, and then one on the opposite side that's facing, towards the springs there. And so, if you get some vice grips, you can kind of pinch the top of the spring there, and then use a screwdriver or a little pry bar and pry against that, and kind of basically pry the spring up a little bit where you can pull it out of the hole that it's kind of tucked into, the hook's tucked into. So I get those two springs undone, and then you can use the bars, because sometimes it's, even though the springs are undone and there's nothing really holding it there, just over time it really like sets in there well. So you almost need to take a pry bar to then back off the brake pads themselves. And then again, in that clam shell type motion, you can pry it open with your arms and pull it off the hub there, off the axle. So you'll see me do that.
And then here's the S-cam, which is the whole thing we're after right now, is to bring that thing out. So that's next. I guess I should inspect that first. I think, if I remember correctly, oh, this bright light, man, I thought it'd be really nice if it's dark on this part of the shop, but I swear it's like in my eyes more than it's in anything else. So I'm starting to rethink it. I feel like just the headlamp's almost nicer. But I got this part already taken apart. I did that a while back. I took the bolts out because I was scared I was going to damage them when I was taking that slack adjuster off. So this pin here has been removed and everything, so I can just slide that off. And then, let's see, I think though, yeah. So there's another clip, what do you call those? Like tension clip or whatever here. So I'll have to actually clean that up a little bit better so I can see it. And then I'll have to take that off, and then I think I'm good to punch that thing out. So let's do that next.
All right, so here I have to take the snap ring off, and these snap rings, I don't know, sometimes they come right off for me, and other times they're a real battle. And this is one where it's a real battle. The tool that I'm using there with the red handles to open up the snap ring, believe it or not, it has a little switch on it where I can like swap it one way so that when you're pulling it closed, it's prying it open, and then if you have it the other way, then it does the opposite effect. And so the whole time I was doing this, I was doing it where I was trying to pry it apart and pull the handles open, and it's really hard to do with one hand while trying to use your other hand to work on it. And later on, I realized I just needed to hit that switch, and then I could just pull it closed and it separates instead of trying to pry it open. And so anyway, once I figured that out, the other S-cams came out much easier using the snap rings. So anyway, just note to self, know the tools that you're using.
So all right, anyway, note to self. And then this is one of the bushings I plan to replace. So the other one's on there. We'll see how it is to get that guy out. There she is. And this is the other bushing. And I think it's the one that's the main problem. So I'll start working on getting that out and then cleaning everything up, and we'll see what everybody thinks.
So removing the bushing is not an easy thing when it's at this state because it's so tight around there, and I don't remember how I removed that first bushing. I didn't kind of keep track of that anywhere. So anyway, I was kind of stumbling and trying to figure out. I thought the channel locks might work, but they didn't do anything, and even trying to pry with a big flathead screwdriver didn't even seem to budge it at all. So In this case, I ended up going and getting a punch and a hammer, and at first just kind of punching on it to see if that would do anything, and then finally, getting smart enough to actually clamp the thing down so that everything wasn't moving as I was trying to get it off. But in the end, as you can see here, eventually, that's what works. So with the bushing off, I can focus on cleaning everything up now. So I, grabbed a wire brush to clean off the very end where the slack adjuster goes, and then grabbed kind of some of these emery cloths and things like that to really shine back up and smooth out the surfaces where the bushings go. My hope is that the smoother those are, the better everything's going to work out later on. So I spent quite a bit of time really making them nice and shiny and smooth. So then at this point, I just had to slide on the seal, the grease seal there, and then the bushing. And I should point out that if you're ever doing something like this, don't put the bushing on at this stage. I did it incorrectly. It worked great for the first one that I did, but you'll see later on this one, that wasn't the right move to do. Putting the bushing directly into where it sits is the better idea, and I'll do that here in a minute. All right, so I thought at this point I was putting everything in, and I was just making a little note to myself as far as the order of how things were going on. Since I'm doing more than one of these replacements, I always like doing these little reminders just so that I can hopefully watch it. I seldom do, but hopefully watch it when I'm doing the next one, so I kind of remember the steps and the order of how everything should go back on. But you'll find out here in a moment, I have to actually take it back apart and kind of redo it anyway.
Well, this is a lot harder. I've been having to hammer it in. Last time it slid right in, so that's different. And next time when you put this guy on, you got to put it on over the ball, because that's in the way. It's not slipping over like I thought. So I actually have to punch it back out so that I can slide that on correctly. That's frustrating. So note to self, next time hammer in the bushing first and then slide this in.
So I was able to find a socket in my set that actually was the same diameter as the bushing, and then I was able to hammer that in. And since the bushing actually, countersinks a little further into that spot, having a socket or something, the same diameter to actually hammer it in was really helpful. So this is where I was putting on one of the new slack adjusters that I bought, just to kind of see how things were fitting. I'm not really ready to put it on for good, but just to kind of, check and see how it fits. And I come across that it does not fit well. So the old slack adjusters, they really had a kind of a smooth part that allowed them to fall all the way down against the axle almost. And this new one has just a little bit of a protrusion that sits out on the slack adjuster in that same spot, so it can't fall closer to the axle where it needs to kind of sit in its resting place. If I, try to push it the whole way on, it stops short, and it's all just because of that extra little bulge there that is in the way. So I was not happy at this point and really kind of frustrated because I wasn't sure what that meant, if I was going to have to buy a different slack adjuster or if I was going to have to actually get a whole new canister in order to kind of make things line up and work. So you can see the difference between the old slack adjuster and the new one, and that extra little bump that's sitting there. And these are just the kind of things that, you know, you just don't think you're going to have any issue. You're going to think you're going to slide one off and slide the new one on, and boy, it can really um, change your time frame as well as um, change the cost too. Sometimes, in this case, I was able to return the slack adjusters that I bought, and I found some online that I think are going to fit much better, but still, it was a delay because it wasn't something that my local store had, and so I had to do a little more research and wait for them to arrive. So of course I have the S camshaft, put in place really nicely, and it hits me that oh, I should actually take it back out, and that will give me a little more space so that when I remove the slack adjuster on the right hand side, um, I'll be able to put on that bearing puller and pull off the slack adjuster, or at least there's a better chance that I'll be able to do it. Because before, when the two bars are side by side, there's not enough room for that screw to fit. So, um, anyway, I'm going to kind of change gears, start focusing on the next set while we're waiting for the slack adjusters to come in. So on the next wheel set, to kind of start on that, I won't record a whole lot of it, but I thought I would record some of it. One, I was going to record uh, taking off the lug nuts just because I had a brand new breaker bar that was quite a bit larger, and so I didn't have to use my cheater pipe anymore, and I could actually just use the breaker bar itself that went on the end of my torque multiplier. So I thought that was interesting enough to record this part. But as you can see, I quickly learned that I'm spinning the whole entire tire. So I have to, put a concrete stake in between the wheels there just to kind of keep the tire from spinning as I'm putting the torque against it to try to get the lug nuts loose.
Oh my goodness. Oh, what the hell? Well, I thought that'd keep the tire from spinning. It just broke it. Broke the concrete stake. Jeez, that's crazy. Look at that. That's quite a bit of torque, I guess. I still don't think the darn thing's broken yet. As far as the actual socket lug nut. Oh man, that's crazy.
So this goes to show, even if you've done one of the projects before and you're repeating a second set of it and you just think you know what you're going to expect, you think you know what's going to happen, there's just always surprises when it comes to these things. These lug nuts were on so tight. I just don't even know how they got them on as tight as they did. But anyway, they were so tight getting them off. I just thought a 2,200 foot-pound torque multiplier with a huge breaker bar would certainly break them, and boy, that was not the case at all. I did, at the same time that I ordered that bigger torque multiplier, I also ordered a bigger impact air gun. But it required a 1/2 inch hose, and I only had a 3/8 inch hose, so I had to set up the hose line before I could really use it. And so anyway, but it's kind of fun getting to test the new toys and see the new tools, and to see what's going to be capable of them and things like that. But at this point, it came really obvious to me that I was going to break something, and I really didn't want to, so it's best just to wait. So it turned out that I didn't have all the parts for the new air impact wrench after all quite yet, so I thought I'd try one more test, and that would be to put a little heat around the lug nuts first and then try again with the big breaker bar and the torque multiplier.
Boy, it popped, but I don't understand how, because it's still really tight. Oh, that's popping.
So when you get one lug nut loose and you have 9 more to go, you put this much effort into it, and it feels like you're going to break something. Yeah, again, you just kind of say mercy, and you think, might as well wait until I can use the new tool, and hopefully things are going to go smoother. Because this point just feels like you're wasting time. So at this point, I switched gears and I went back to trying to remove the slack adjuster. Since I didn't record a whole lot of that on the first one, I thought I'd record some of it, but it's so hard to record with this angle. I don't have a good setup with my camera on my phone and all that. So I literally am just trying to set my camera down in places where I think maybe I'll be able to record some of it. But it just ends up being kind of too difficult. So at least I got a little bit here where you can kind of see the process and you can see what I'm doing. Since the bearing puller's not made for this application, it's very difficult to actually get it to hang on to that slack adjuster. But I was able to kind of do so to at least put some tension on it. So when I hit it with a hammer, it couldn't just bounce, and it kind of gave some pressure against it. But hitting it with the hammer is also very difficult because of the space that you're in. It's not like you can get a good swing at it. You just have these short little swings that you get. And anyway, it takes a long time and not fun.
Anyway, you get the idea what I'm trying to do. Just tighten it over here and whack it over here, tighten it over here and whack it over here.
Well, I apologize. I'm jumping all over the place on this project, but now that I have that slack adjuster off on the other side, I feel like I can start putting the left hand, or the first kind of one that I was working on here, back together again. So um, first thing I did was I greased it, and I did that now before I put the slack adjuster on, so I can really spin it the whole way around and get that grease nice and evenly distributed around it. Now at this point, I need to go ahead and put on the brakes. So when you put the brake pads on, if you don't have that S-cam in the exact position, it's going to be a little cattywampus like this. So best thing to do is just adjust the S-cam shaft so that everything lines up better.
All right, so it's sitting on there pretty decent. And now I just need to add the springs that go across there on the front and the back. So let's do that next.
Adding the springs is always easier than I think it's going to be. If you just have a vice grip and a screwdriver, it actually goes in pretty easy. So to put the hub back on, I first started with the inner bearing and getting that, kind of seated a little bit on there pretty well, and then adding the drum on top of that. I tried this time using a jack to kind of help lift it and guide it in, but I didn't have a very good approach on it. I ended up just wrestling the thing. So as much as I thought that that was going to be a good idea, the way I did it really wasn't all that great. But I got it on there, and then really kind of tightened it down by spinning it and then using some really big channel locks to really tighten down on that nut, and then, I'd spin it every once in a while and then tighten it down again. And it was pretty ugly, but it worked.
Okay, I just put the cover on. These are just finger tight. There's no gasket yet, and I have to take this off to kind of mess around with things a little bit more, but anyway, at least it's, for now, good enough. So I'm gonna, again, this should just kind of keep the dirt and the dust off, and I can start working on the other side now. So I was able to put on this hose fitting here. It actually said not to put the quick coupler on the device itself because of the fact that I guess it vibrates so much that it would ruin your quick coupler, and I'm sure that could be an issue. So I bought kind of an extra little hose and cut it, and then added that to the fitting that they included with it. And then I have the setup now out here, so it's a 1/2 inch line, and this is going to be my first time running it this morning, so it'll be a nice fun test. But I got the other quick coupler here for the 1/2 inch, so that's all installed and ready to go. Nothing yet. Hey, pulled that one right off.
So as you see me using the impact wrench, you'll see me constantly stopping and looking at the wall, and I'm looking at the regulator just to see what the air pressure is at, because it just seems like it's eating so much air pressure so fast. And then I kind of stop at some point and start going back and forth between the impact gun here and actually using the torque multiplier. And that's, one, just to try different things to see what's going to work best. And then two, it's just to kind of allow the air compressor to rebuild air pressure. So at this point, the other thing is I have a mind change here, because the tools that I've bought are the tools I'm going to buy. I'm not going to buy any more tools. I got the big old tools that I was waiting for. They showed up, and I'm not buying any more. So at this point, it just kind of is that much more motivating that it's like, whether it's tough or not, I just have to keep working at it.
Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 10 undone. This is so slow going. I don't know if you can tell on the crowbar or not, but it is pretty decently bent in there. So I think what I really need to do is get it out and then rotate the tire so this valve stem's not there, and then I can put one through here and one through here so that I have double the stopping power, so that the wheel can't turn when I put all that torque on it. And I'm really starting to guess that, along with this long line here, and then that's the air line up there, and it's going across and basically back over to the back corner of that area of the shop. And I just have a feeling that I bumped up the PSI a couple times now because I think, you know, that's a lot of air. And so I just think that it's not, every once in a while, it seemed like the gun would kind of kick into another, you know, vibration. Instead of just boom, 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 it would be like boom, boom, boom. And I think that that's probably where it needs to be, but it's just not getting, and there's too much airline that's bringing down the pressure maybe. So anyway, I don't know. For now, anyway, I'm going to go blow my nose and take a little break. But I think I'll see if maybe I can spin that tire and get that out of there. I don't know if I can though, but anyway, I think that's going to be my next plan of actions. If I can spin it and then really make sure that that can't go anywhere, then when I'm putting the torque on it, at least I don't have to worry about the tire spinning. All right, well, I grabbed a bunch of bars, but getting them to actually do anything is something else. But I had to get this little concrete stake in there, and then this one that's already kind of bent up, I just had to use it again that same way. Anyway, then I ended up just using the torque multiplier, and it seemed like, I don't know, moving that to a new position, if that helped, or if it's just the fact that I had, you know, double traction on there so that it actually wouldn't flex. But it seemed like I finally got them all. I'm pretty sure. So I'm gonna confirm now, but I'm and spin off the nuts, but I'm almost positive I have all of them undone now, even the really tough one.
Well, when I switched to the inner wheel, I was pleasantly surprised because everything just spun off really easy. So it's amazing how the outer lug nuts were so difficult to take off, but the inner ones on this wheel set were just perfectly, you know, no problem, which is completely different from the opposite side. But anyway, at least one went really smooth. Well, we're switching back to the original side again. I got everything that I needed. I was basically waiting for a socket for the inner spindle nut on this side. And so anyway, now that that socket came in, I figured we can go ahead and really actually finish up this side all the way this time. So I kind of took the cap back off, took all the washers back off, and then put them back on. This time I used that socket so that I could really make sure that I knew that it was seated on there really well. Because I know you don't want to go too tight with those axle nuts, but I also wanted to make sure on a trailer this size that it was on there really well.
This is how it's looking here. And so I got 1, 2, 3, 4 down. Before there was only 3, but I did 4 because I think this one I had bent over before, so I wanted to make sure I had kind of more fresh ones than not fresh ones. So I think that should be all right. And again, things are feeling nice and tight there. So I'm gonna put the cap back on with the gasket this time, and then this will be actually put back together, and then I can start putting the wheels back on and tightening those down. And yeah, it should be good. So that's how it's looking.
Okay, well, we're just putting everything back together, so nothing too exciting. I did get the gasket back on there, and then actually on the bolts that you put on there on the cap, I went ahead and got some red Loctite, went ahead and put that on. And then once I start kind of getting to the point where I'm getting ready to put the wheel back on, I made sure to put copper anti-seize around all of the studs and lug nuts and things like that, just so that hopefully next time I have to do this process, maybe nothing will be seized up and then things will come off a little bit smoother and easier. Well, there's not too much to say here as I'm putting everything back together. I wish I could make this go even faster than it already is. Um, the only thing that I can kind of talk about a little bit is that when there's 10 lug nuts, I don't know, the way you tighten them up is opposing each other and trying to kind of get it uniform all the way around. And so for me, the way that I tried tracking it this time, and it kind of worked pretty decently. Was I just took a little bit of masking tape, and each time I would, torque one of the lug nuts, then I'd put some masking tape on that lug nut so that I knew that it was done. So when you see me, along the side of the trailer, there's little blue strips of masking tape, and as I torque them, I grab a little, bit of it, and then I just add it to the lug nut. So that way I kind of remember which one I've done, and I make sure that I get them all torqued. You'll also notice that I'm torquing them twice. So I kind of went up to about 220 foot-pounds the first round, and then the second round is where I took it up to the 490 foot-pounds to kind of finish them off. So um, yeah, hopefully by kind of starting with I don't know if that's actually the correct way to do it or not. I should say that, but hopefully by starting with a lower torque and kind of getting everything uniform and then hitting it again at a higher torque, I'm hoping it just does a better job. So I did remember to go back under and put the slack adjuster back in. The new slack adjusters came in. They actually fit really well. So it actually went really smooth. I recorded some of it, but as you can see from this, most of what I recorded was my back, and you didn't really get to see a whole heck of a lot. But I put the slack adjuster on there, tightened it up, and it was good to go.
We are all hooked up, and anyway, hopefully it's all is good. Hopefully.
So I went ahead and put on the outside wheel. When you're putting on dualies like that, you always want to get the air valves kind of opposite of each other. So it took me a little bit to kind of line those up, make sure that I have them opposite, and make sure that the inside wheel air valve is matching up with a hole on the outside so that you have access to it. But anyway, got those lined up, got them tightened down, and then eventually torqued as well here. And this is just a good time to note as well, where it's one of those things that there's nothing to it. It's really simple, but man, oh man, like I mean, you can see how fast forwarded it is and how long it actually takes. It just these are the time suck things, and I know somebody else probably wouldn't have done a lot of the tightening by hand there and would have just used a impact air gun, but I don't know. I just like making sure that everything's set done, and by doing it by hand feels like the right way to do it. Um, but anyway, I do that, I torque it, and then the only thing left to do is to add oil to the hub. So I'm going to do that at the very end with all of them at the same time. So I don't actually have that on video, but I guarantee I got that done, and everything's put back together. I'm a happy camper. All right, well, while the video should be really done at this point, I did want to include a couple extra bonus clips on the end here of the working on the second tire. I kind of mentioned it earlier in the video, but when I took the drum off on the other side, I tried doing it with a floor jack, and strapping it to the floor jack to see if, pulling it on and off with it strapped to the floor jack would work or not. And it actually worked out really, really well. So I thought I'd just, fly by and show this really quick. I'm not going to slow it down or talk through anything of it. You can kind of see what's going on there. But I was able to strap it down and do that. Uh, it worked out really well. When you put it back on, it's not lined up perfectly, so I kind of had to, get it really close and then unstrap it and kind of still manhandle it a little bit at that point. But boy, it still went so much smoother than it did on the other side. So I think if somebody else is doing something like this and you have straps and a floor jack, that seems to be the way to go in my mind. That's certainly what I'm going to do on the third wheel. So anyway, but I appreciate everybody that has watched this far. I kind of will apologize now. This video, now that I'm editing it, I can see how long it's been, and boy, I didn't intend it to be this long. So I hope you enjoyed it, whether you're laughing at me or whether you actually found it interesting. I don't know, but either way, thanks so much for watching, and have a great one.
Okay, I tried using the jack to take it off, and that worked out pretty slick, so I'm doing the same. I'm attempting to put it on, but we'll see. I have a feeling I'm going to get it partially on there, and then I'll struggle and have to unstrap it.